I'm Allan Nelson. I'm CEO, co-founder of Foresight. Our background, we've been doing this for quite a long time, believe it or not, in Edinburgh. I'm one of the many, many Northern Irish that left Northern Ireland back in the day and came to Scotland for reasons that I'm sure we all know about. We also are actually based in Bangor, Northern Ireland as well, and that's the best picture that we could find of Bangor, which is the marina there. So we've been working in the hotel sector for about 10 years. We have gradually scaled the product and solved a series of problems for hotels, mainly resorts, groups, people like Village, like Juries, Gleneagles, Delato Hotel Group, people like that. And very much it's been trying to solve a data problem. So we've always focused on the data. How do we make the data right? How do we make it correct? How do we combine it, create a single customer view? Because what we want to be able to do, like Julie, is to be able to enhance the guest experience. And that's really what it's about, is creating a really cool digital guest experience for the guest, which then enables the hotel to increase their revenue, upsell, and hopefully start to get around the OTA problem, which is exactly what Judy said there, which is the OTAs will always be there as an acquisition channel, but we obviously want to bring them back, okay? So what we know in this day and age is that we have to get around it. The largest problem that we have to solve really is that consumers are bombarded with noise. Every day you receive lots of text messages, emails, Facebook messages, all the other brand new channels, Instagram posts and everything else, and how do we actually cut through that? And the way to cut through that, again, is that personalization piece. And again, for example, looking around the market, looking at what happens, I always focus on what Netflix do, Spotify, Amazon. How do we replicate that in the hotel space? You can see examples here on screen. A particularly interesting one is Amazon, because in my case they send me far too much stuff and therefore I've completely dialed it down. So the guest has to be in control of the interaction with the hotel as much as the hotel is in control of it. Okay. Likewise, a couple of stats as well, which I think are quite interesting. Salesforce did some research on this, and 62% of consumers are expecting companies to send them personalized offers. Again, we talked about millennials there already. And 57% of consumers are willing to share personal data in exchange for the personalized offers, which means there's 5% of people out there who want something personalized but actually won't tell the hotel anything about them, which is quite an interesting gap, which also means that there are 43% of people out there-ish who actually don't want to share any information at all. And why is that? GDPR is not the reason, but I think in my mind is the result of the reason. I think, despite given what we do, I'm quite a big privacy advocate, and it was mentioned earlier on by Nick about GDPR and so on. Pretty quickly, I think this is the biggest fundamental challenge to the industry in the next 10 years. Is we have all of this data available to us. We are able to do all these fantastically, brilliantly cool things. For guests, for consumers and everything else, but should we actually be doing it? What does the consumer think they are handing over? What does the consumer think they are getting? Because if you look in the news in the last couple of years, without getting too much into the politics of it, a year ago if I was standing on stage, I would use the American example. I can now stand on stage and I can also use the British example today as well. I believe some of the Conservative Party, for example, have ads all loaded up, ready to go for the next election, which are borderline interesting. The SNP, as examples as well, did at one point engage with Cambridge Analytica, I believe. So, and that was before any of the scandal came out. So, everyone's gotten padded into the use of data and not actually thought, what should we be doing with it? So, part of our job when we work with our clients, we work with our hotels, is actually to make sure they understand it, the guests understand it, and it works its way through the whole process. Consent is very clear, legitimate interest is very clear, and it's absolutely fundamental for what we do, because if we get it wrong, then the ICO gets involved and everybody's got a big problem, okay? So, I think Julie's kind of covered this already, but I think a really interesting quote from the ex-CEO of Expedia. He's obviously now, Dara's now at Uber. What he said to a group of hoteliers in an audience like this, as usual when a CEO of an OTA gets up, everyone's sharpening the knives and got the pitchforks out. He said, look, don't shout at me for bringing you guests. I will bring you guests. I will continue to bring you guests. That will not stop. But it's your problem if you don't retain them. If they come back via me, I should not be giving them back to you. So therefore, they should not be. You should have the retention piece. And to do that, the hotels need to get control of their data, understand their data, and then use that to drive that direct relationship. However, as Julie also alluded to, the the greatest diagram in history regarding the hotel technology stack is the problem that we've had to try and solve as a business for the last 10 years. So in order to get into this space, we didn't quite realize what this looked like. We were just told to go in and integrate with a property management system, which we were told at the time was quite difficult. It was called Opera for anybody who works in the space. And inadvertently, we ended up going into the largest platform in the world that does this type of thing. And then we started to realize there was all these other different data points around it. And then we had to go into these data points and extract the data from it, and so on, so on. And in some ways, it's been quite nice being self-funded and organic. It means that the industry has given us a bit of time to do that. But it's not been the easiest thing to do as the years have gone on. I think what Nick said earlier on about a lot of these cool experiences, using data to drive great consumer guest experiences, the reality is for a lot of businesses or sectors, particularly like the hotel sector, the tourism sector, they have been around for a very, very long time, which means their technology solutions have been around for a very long time. And they're often not that joined up. And that is a problem that the industry has to try and solve. It is happening with cloud-based property management systems, APIs coming online, but it is taking a long time. But that is a shift I expect to see in the next decade. Okay, so what we've tried to do is understand and reframe the guest journey. Obviously, we are looking at it from the hotel perspective, and previously over the years, it's been quite a linear thing. People search, they book, they stay, they review, they clear off, you never see them again. So what we've tried to do, work with our clients, is to reframe that much more into the kind of Amazon or the HubSpot flywheel. You bring people in at each stage. You talk to them when they're searching, when they're booking. You give them pre-stay content. You give them on-site content, post-stay content, reviews, and you're looking to bring them back all the time and build that direct relationship via the comms. We look to tailor various journeys depending on the type of segment of customer. Are they overseas? Are they high spenders? Are they low spenders? Are they here on corporate? Are they here on leisure? All that different type of stuff we can do. The automation exists for us to do these different types of journeys. Okay, and from our perspective, our vision has always been to pull together the various different data points of what the guest has done or will do. That could be leisure, golf, spa, accommodation, events, etc., and tie that in with the channels. Now, because we have quite a bit of history doing this, we live in the omni-channel world, and someone mentioned that earlier on. The reality being that the majority of digital comms over the years have been via email. We put out usually about 250 million a year for our client base, but we are increasingly seeing this shift to other channels, and it's one of the things that we're working with Crichton on. From an app perspective, so if we have 50,000 people in the database and 3,000 have downloaded the app, they are probably quite high value guests, therefore we want to talk to them through the app. We don't want to talk to them through email. Okay, and the idea being is that what we do is we look to put the guest at the center of it, and we communicate with the guest based on their preferences via the channel that they want to be communicated with. And another example of that as well is when we bring the guests through a journey, we are looking to empower the guests in terms of how the hotel is talking to them, but we're also actually looking to empower the hotel staff by telling them who's arriving at the hotel when, what category they sit in, what RFM code they have. In the case of the example on screen here is whether that red rectangle highlights a booking.com email address because it's in the hotel's interests to capture the real email address for the guest, and therefore they can start communicating directly. So our job is increasingly becoming giving visual prompts to the hotel staff to allow them to take the guest down a journey. So you could rock up at the hotel, you've stayed 20 times, but it could be leisure, it could be corporate, and maybe even we can't tell that from the data given your history. However, the staff can ask the question. And if you're one of the high spending guests who's arrived on leisure, you're the guy out of 25 who arrived who gets the bottle of champagne. So it's the experiential loyalty, and it's empowering the hotel to be able to deliver a great experience. Okay, so just to wrap up, in terms of where this is going, we've obviously been on this journey for a wee bit longer than Julie has from a technology point of view, but we're kind of all going in the same direction. We're very excited, in Edinburgh, working with Josh, with Leslie, various others at the universities. Crichton ourselves are doing a joint project on starting to look and build a recommendation engine for hotels. So, whenever you rock up the hotel, you've done spa before, would you like to do it again, et cetera, et cetera. And we've worked with universities on a couple of other projects this year regarding one of the students we worked with basically proved a cancellations model, was able to predict cancellations for hotels, which is a big difficult issue. We've rebuilt our RFM. And over the next 10 years, what we're wanting to explore is the machine learning side of it, the AI side of it. So how can we automate this guest experience? Because that's when we can get true scale. Because from our point of view, being a Scottish, a European, a UK, a European vendor doing this, the majority of companies that we compete with are actually American. And why is it that on this side of the Atlantic we can't produce technology that should allow us to compete on a global stage? And as a matter of fact, Foresight is, at the moment, we are second in our category on the Global Hotel Tech Report. I'm looking at Jamie here. I'm not quite sure why, but I'm quite happy with that. But there's a huge opportunity in this space the next 10 years to get the personalization right and get the guest journey right. And I would love to be doing that in Scotland. And I would love to be part of a travel tech scene in Scotland that is not just Skyscanner. So, and there you go. So that's me.